Hey, it's John from Habitat again. Here's an interesting drywall challenge. We had a leak with this washer, the piping behind the wall. So the plumber came in and cut out the drywall, and it's not cut out nicely. And plumbers aren't paid to cut things out nicely, they're paid to move fast. So now we've got a challenge of fixing this drywall. And it's all jaggedy, and what a lot of people would do is try to fit drywall into that space. What I'm going to do is cut a bigger space and then fit the new drywall into a bigger space. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to measure past this spot and this spot. And when I measured it before, it was about 16 inches. So I wrote 16 inches up here. I always like to write my numbers down, so I'm not going, oh, what was that number again? And I know my top to the bottom from here is 47. And I know that a half sheet of drywall is 48. So I'm just going to make it 48 on the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a 16-inch by 48-inch piece of drywall. Okay, so I found a sheet of drywall that I think will work, or a piece of drywall. All drywall, the majority of the drywall you're going to buy at a store is going to be 4 feet by 8 feet. You can buy 8s, 10s, 12s, but this was out of 4 by 8. And so this is 4 feet tall. And what I needed on my numbers was a 4 feet, 48 inches, and a 16. So I just came across here, did 16 here. I've already cut the piece with a straight edge. And when you cut drywall, if you ever cut drywall before, but it's fairly simple to cut drywall, especially when you're doing it in straight cuts. Just find a straight edge. They make a drywall L that you can use for a straight edge. They're great, but if you don't have it, just find any straight edge and just cut down. You don't have to cut all the way through, just make a mark, push a little bit hard on it. Make your mark, and then once you have your mark made, you can just, with your knee in the back, just break the drywall like that, and then come to the back side of the drywall, and just use your razor blade to cut off the paper in the back. And now we got our piece. So what we're going to do now is take this piece, lay it over the hole, and then we're going to mark the drywall that's on the wall to know what to cut. So I know I got to be about 48, and I want to match up the bottom of the drywall. Just going to put my foot on there to hold it in place, get it somewhat level. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this part out of the drywall, and then I'll show you how to fill it in with wood behind it so you can be able to screw this piece to a piece of wood back there. But see how that's much easier? Now I'm cutting this, not trying to cut a piece of drywall that's kind of that shape going around like that. So I'll be back to you. I'm going to cut this out, and then I'll show you how to put the wood on. So we've cut out where we had marked on the wall, and then we cut out our piece before. That's what we used to trace the wall. To cut the drywall out, you can use a razor blade. Just make sure your blade's sharp and just go right down the lines like that. But you got to make several passes because you're not going to do it one pass, and it's a little bit of work to do it that way. If you have one of these Ryobi flat blades, I love Ryobi from Home Depot, big supporter of Habitat. If you have one of these Ryobi reciprocating flat blades, whatever they call them, these are great tools because you can just go right down the drywall and cut that piece with a really straight line. This is my most favorite tool in my toolbox, and it just came out maybe 15 years ago. They weren't around. So the other thing I had to do here is because I've got the water line holder here with the drain in it, I had marked my drywall here. There, so that I can cut that out, but I'll cut that off video. But I just want to show you how easy it is once you follow that process of cutting the drywall. First, marking the wall. Now you have a nice clean piece versus trying to cut out those jagged pieces. It takes a long time. You get frustrated. It's one nice piece. Plus, when you're mudding, much easier to mud. I've got other videos on there on how to mud and tape. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you too, if for some reason when you're cutting something and there wasn't enough wood left to put, there's enough wood here, just a little bit, but that's all you need for drywall. But you can scab something on. So you can take a board and stick it on here. I got the pipe in a way here, so I'd have to cut it down a little bit. But I could scab this board on out to the same depth as that board, screw it into the wall, and I can use it to put my drywall on there too. So that's a tip on fixing raggedy, tough to fix drywall holes. All right, now we're at the point where we can hang it. Drywall screws, you can buy them at Home Depot. You usually want to be about 3/4 inch into the wood. This is 1 1/4 inches. The drywall is a 1/2 inch, that gives me my 3/4 inch. Not so important on walls, but when you're doing ceilings, you got to make sure you get enough into the wood. I'm just going to use they make a special drywall gun, but for just doing small projects, any drill will work. You just have to dimple it. And so if you remember, I had a lot of wood up here in the top, so I'm just going to run a screw in. And as I get close, I'm going to slow down a little bit, and I'm just going to tap the trigger until I dimple it just enough so that it muds, so the mud goes over the top of that dimple. Now also, something important, if you have plumbing you got to stay away from, make sure you mark the drywall on both sides. There was a plumbing pipe running right through here, so I don't want to put any screws here or here, because if you do, there's a good chance you might go into that pipe and cause a problem. The other thing you have to think about too is now when you cut that drywall piece out, we took out a lot of screws there, so this piece now is not screwed to the wood anymore. So make sure you do the other side of the original drywall when you're screwing. So make sure you go up and down here. Do not need to do anything across here. Drywall will span 1/2 inch for sure. Will span the 2x4s, which are 16 on center, so nothing's needed up on the top there. We're just going to go down the sides. And that's it, and then you're down to mudding. So we're down to the taping stage. There's more detail on how to do this on our YouTube page, the Habitat YouTube page. I like to use fiberglass. Some people like to use paper. Paper's less expensive, so the professionals use paper because when they're doing a whole house, it costs a lot. But if you're doing a small project, buy fiberglass tape. The trick with fiberglass tape is you can never find where it starts. So what I like to do is take my razor blade and run it around the tape until it pulls up. If it doesn't pull up the first time around, go the other direction. Fiberglass tape sticks to the wall, so you don't have to mud it before, where paper you have to mud before. So I'm just going to stick it right on the wall, and then I'm going to cut it off. It doesn't have to be exact. This is it's not exact science. And I noticed that the drywall went in further here than up here. No worries. We're going to put mud in here. We're going to make that all nice and smooth over time. There's also a gap up here, and people worry about those gaps. You actually want drywall gaps because the drywall mud will sink in there better. Some people try to get it so tight, it's like, I don't know, like you're doing trim work, and you don't have to worry about that in drywall. There can be big gaps. There's a gap right here. I'm going to put a little tape over that, and I'm going to tape that, and then the cover's going to cover that. So drywall is more of rough carpentry. At least, and then when you get to the final step in the drywall, then it's like finished carpentry. So drywall tape, use fiberglass, and don't worry about the gaps. And then the next step, we're going to start mudding. Now I don't have any of my tools with me, so I just improvised. You can buy pre-mixed drywall mud, or you can buy bags of it. And in the bags, it's going to be 20, 45, 90. That means it's going to dry in about 20 minutes. It really doesn't dry in 20 minutes. It kind of sets up in 20 minutes. So I just used, mixed up some 20 here, and I just used paint roller covers. So I'm just going to put my first coat on, and on your first coat, you're just trying to get that tape to hold. So don't worry about the different level here. I just want the drywall mud to cover the holes of the fiberglass. And then once that dries, then we'll worry about the bigger gap. Put on more and more mud. Easier over here because it's more of a same plane. But that's all you're doing on the first coat is getting that fiberglass just to hold. Don't do too much on there because you have to sand it off or scrape it off. Just like that, right down. Normally I'd use like a 2-inch knife for this, but I don't have a 2-inch knife, so I'm just going to use this, looks like probably a 6. Go all the way around, get that tape on nice, let it dry. It's probably going to take a couple hours to dry, and then we'll come back with the second coat.